and Kill, the podcast that dives deep into the chilling world of horror films. Every other Thursday, we explore a different movie, from cult classics to modern masterpieces, uncovering behind-the-scenes secrets, analyzing themes, and sharing spine-tingling trivia. Join us as we chat with filmmakers, actors, and fellow horror enthusiasts to celebrate the art of fear in cinema. And now, the hosts of Opening Kill, Michael Doran and Brian O'Connor.
Hello.
Hello, how are we doing tonight?
Happy Halloween.
Yes. A little spooky vibes going on here.
My name is Brian O'Connor.
I am Michael Duran. Thank you for joining us.
We're just two horror film fanatics.
Yeah.
And, here we are.
Yeah, decided to, hey, why not talk about it?
Yeah, exactly.
There we
go. So we are going to talk about all things horror over the next however many years we decide we want to do this podcast, right?
Right.
And a little bit about me, as far as getting into horror films, I was pretty young. I remember being about 6 or 7 years old, and this would have been 1979, 1980. I had two older sisters. They were teenagers, and one night they were in the living room watching something on TV, and I was known, even at that age, for just getting out of bed and wandering around and exploring after my parents went to bed. And so I actually got up, went out to the living room. They were watching Halloween on HBO.
Classic.
You didn't like it, so it hadn't been out very long, and my oldest sister, the most mischievous one, said, "Hey, Brian, why don't you come watch this movie? You're really going to like it." And she just smiled. And looking back, obviously she was thinking I was going to be terrified and that was going to be funny to her. I ended up really enjoying it.
Like, joke's on her. This is my new obsession.
Absolutely. So that's kind of what happened. And that's, what we did there. And I'd never looked back. I had an uncle who, he introduced me to even more horror films as I got a little bit older. And I remember going over to my aunt and uncles, and me and them and my cousin, we would, every Saturday night, we would gather around the TV. We would go to a video store. You know what that is?
We actually loved my local video store. Yeah. One of my favorite places growing up.
Yeah, so we would go rent these VHS tapes. This is, again, even before DVDs. And my aunt would go down to the local burger shop, bring dinner home, and we would watch 2 or 3 horror movies. And this was like an every Saturday night tradition. So, yeah.
That's actually a pretty rad Saturday.
Yeah.
My introduction to horror was way less cool. I remember getting into the Goosebumps books. And that was like my initial initiation into it. I just loved the spooky covers and diving into those stories, and horror movies didn't really come into my life until kind of later, because I grew up, no one in my family likes anything to do with horror. So it was not something I just had access to. But once I turned 15, 16, I would start renting them and just watching them, consuming them in my room. And I just got the bug and did not stop watching them. Now, I'm still, whenever I have a chance, I'm watching some horror. So,
right. Yeah. And of course, spooky season, October starts, and that is when the marathons really begin from
it really kicks up.
Yeah.
It's going all year long, but it's it takes a little extra.
Yeah.
It goes up a level.
Little turbocharge there. Yeah. So we're going to talk about a franchise here that I was not as familiar with as you were.
Yeah, I'd only seen them one other time before this, but I've got a little bit of an introduction into it. Again, this is one that I just got a weird random recommendation from a friend of mine. He's like, "You got to check this movie out." And I was like, okay. I mean, didn't look too special based on the cover, and it's something. This franchise is something.
We are talking about none other than the Terrifier.
Yes, Damien Leone's Terrifier.
Yes. I am not really into extreme gore, so of course these are the perfect movies for me.
Yeah.
I love suspense. My favorites are the supernatural thrillers, and I do love the slashers, but I would say for the most part, slashers are not quite as graphic as what these films are. These really push the boundaries.
This feels very underground grindhouse.
Yes.
It's definitely a more twisted, disgusting take on the slasher.
Right.
And you can tell that they did not have any budget.
No.
You can smell this movie almost.
Yes.
It looks so disgusting. There's this grainy haze over it the entire time.
Right.
And it just, it feels like something you shouldn't be watching.
Exactly. It just feels
is this
wrong.
legal?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is this legal? Exactly.
And like, is this? Yeah, I guess this is considered a slasher.
Yeah.
It's just takes it to a little different level slasher.
Whole different level. And there is comedy infused
Yeah,
in this
definitely.
too, because you look at Art the Clown and his mannerisms and everything, and it's funny, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah, like you're kind of like enjoying him
Right.
doing horrible things. You're
Horrible
just
things.
like, I don't know, this feels wrong, but God, this guy's funny.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we'll dig into these films here, and starting with the first one from 2016. There are actually a few projects leading up to the 2016 feature.
Yeah, there's a couple. Was there a short film?
There was a short film,
Okay.
and then we get into the 2016 film, which was his first full length. Well, actually, All Hallows Eve was his first full length feature.
And that's an anthology, right?
Yeah.
It's not like okay.
Yeah, it's a group of short films interwoven together. And then we get into 2016 and the very first Terrifier.
Yeah.
And
That was unleashed on the world.
it was unleashed on the world, and not much of a budget on that either.
No. You can tell.
Yeah, you can definitely tell.
Mainly with the acting, I feel.
Yeah, I think so too. I do think there's something to be said for that, though. I mean, that's definitely guerrilla independent filmmaking at its finest, when you can get away with everything they did. The budget was projected, they're estimating it between $35,000 and $55,000.
So nothing.
And it turned a profit. It actually made a little over $419,000. So it wasn't much of a profit, but it was enough.
Yeah, it piqued interest.
It piqued interest, put him on the map, and then all of a sudden we have two more.
Right.
With a fourth one that is in the works.
Confirmed, yeah.
Confirmed, yeah.
It's turned itself into quite the little franchise.
It really
it's
has.
It's like the little engine that could, but
and it still
twisted
does.
in. Yeah.
So let's just dive right in here with Terrifier, the first film that came out in 2016.
Yes.
Written, directed, produced, I think edited by Damien Leone.
Yep.
And I had not seen this film.
Yeah, this was your first time seeing it. I had seen it one other time before. I had seen the first two a total of once. And I didn't really get them when I first watched them, honestly. I was kind of like, they're gross.
Right? They're gross.
That's kind of what I got from them. This time around, I appreciated them a lot more.
Okay.
I appreciated the performance specifically from David Howard Thornton's performance as
Oh my God.
Art.
This guy, he's an amazing actor.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, again, to see him out of makeup and do just like a regular interview or whatever.
Yeah,
he
seems
looks
so
like
nice.
the nicest guy.
Yeah.
And you get him into this character, and it is horrific. So just kind of a brief synopsis. If you've not seen this movie, Art the Clown is this really kind of a psychopathic, I don't even know how to describe him. He's just
a dude who likes dressing up as a clown and causing bodily harm to people.
Yeah.
He's just, that's his gig.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yeah.
He's definitely one of the more sadistic slasher characters you're going to come across.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah. He's not, he's not out to make any friends.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre to me to see this character blossom into the mainstream like he has, because you're seeing him in like Spirit Halloween. He's got animatronics in Spirit Halloween. He's on a lot of their merch. You're like, how did this movie get into the mainstream like it has? That's the most interesting thing to me. Just really based off the subject matter and what this guy does on screen, for him to resonate with, I guess, general audiences is just really bizarre.
Pretty crazy. Basically, so if you've not seen Terrifier, Art the Clown is this, like you said, sadistic figure who stalks a group of friends on Halloween night. Mm-hmm. They have an encounter with him in this diner, and basically they're trapped in this nightmare situation where, he's after them.
And we've all been in those situations where, like, you're in public, someone is just being weird, and it's making you feel uneasy. Yeah. Luckily for most people, they're not dealing with a man in a clown costume.
No.
But we've all been in these situations where, like, something's just off about this guy,
right?
And you're very uncomfortable.
Yeah. this film, obviously, not just this one, all the films in this franchise are known for just the brutal, sadistic ways that people are killed. These are not quick kills like you will see in, I would say, a typical slasher.
Right. Nice, clean. I mean, not clean, but
no. If you're looking for that, you're looking for you're looking in the wrong place.
Wrong
here.
Movie.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of blood, lots of body parts that are chopped off in different ways, very interesting ways, and very just you look at it. I actually had to look away from some of these kills.
Yeah, that's fair. There's one in particular which I think is the moment that if anyone has seen this movie, they will talk about this moment.
You're talking about the cut in half.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get this scene where one of the gals is chained to a chair and it's unveiled to her that Art has her friend upside down, legs agape.
Yep.
Totally naked except for underwear, which quickly he rips off.
He rips off very violently, by the way. Yeah.
I don't know why. It's like the saw would have cut through him.
Yeah.
It's not like they're saw-proof panties.
No, they're not. They're not. And so he's firing up a chainsaw, and with her legs spread, she's just hanging there. And she's conscious.
Yeah, no, she's conscious. She's alive.
And her friend who had been drugged is awake now watching this whole thing in front of her. Art the Clown revs
Very
up the chainsaw
slowly.
and then right between the legs going straight down. And I heard about the scene where the girl is cut in half, but I was thinking it was going to go the other way, like through the midsection, that crossways. Not this way.
No, vagina first.
Yeah, and because of the length of the body, the kill is longer and it goes on. And on and on, and then he'll stop, and then he gets going again, and he's just dancing around with the chainsaw.
He's having a good time.
He was having way too much fun, and that's what makes this so scary and so creepy. That anybody could be enjoying something like this. I mean, this is just like, oh my god,
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's
and
a lot.
The thing that is even like crazier is if you were just to be like, we're telling you this is what happens.
Yeah.
With most movies, they do tricks where they cut away or they cut down to like the reaction of the person who's watching it. No, this is just the whole thing, the entire way down. You see it all. Yeah,
exactly. It's very bad. I'd never seen anything like that.
No, it's definitely,
and I've seen so many horror films that have a lot of cool, brutal kills in it, but nothing quite like this. That this makes you go, what did I just see?
Yeah. And so like, that's obviously the big kill, but we're introduced to a character named Victoria,
right?
Who originally is kind of just one of the girl's sisters, and you don't really think too much is going to be involved with her.
Yeah.
But her sister, who you originally thinks going to be the final girl, is killed off by a gun from Art, which is not something you generally see in a slasher.
Right.
Slashers don't use guns, but Art will use anything at his disposal.
But is Victoria really killed off?
Well,
see?
Yeah. We'll see. And so then we meet a bunch of different little characters, but you don't really know anything about them because their whole job is to die at the hands of Art. One of the characters we do meet that is, I think, kind of interesting is this lady who I guess lives in an apartment building, or maybe she just hangs out there. I don't know if she actually lives there.
That's never really that information is never really given to us what she's doing there. She's just
she's there with cats and a baby doll that's like a glass doll that she thinks is her child.
Yeah.
So she's a bit unhinged. And her death is, I think, another moment that's definitely worth talking about. And one of my favorite moments of suspense actually is with her death, because we see what we think is her on the ground face down. But it turns out that's not actually her.
Yeah.
She is then kind of crawls out from like the blind spot.
Right.
And we see that she is scalped and her whole torso is skinned. And that's when the body that we think is hers pops up, and Art is wearing her torso and her scalp
and her breasts. It's just like, oh my God. And he's just kind of dancing around again.
Yeah, it's very like Buffalo Bill.
Yes.
He's like feeling himself. He's dancing. He's strutting like he's on a catwalk. And that's just another great like kill moment, but also just a character moment that the actor of Art just eats up.
Oh my gosh.
He's having so much fun.
Right. Well, and you're talking about eating up. We're going to talk about poor Victoria at the end of this movie.
Yeah, I guess Art has some cannibalistic tendencies too. Add that to his resume.
Exactly. Because you see this, again, spoiler alert, you see this at the end of the film, he has basically been, he begins to maul her face. She's down and out, and he's doing that. And the police show up. Art then shoots himself in the head.
Which is, kind of like
Surprised
a whoa moment.
Was not expecting that. And so police discover that Victoria is still alive, and she gets taken to the hospital. And then, a year later, we see her with her face completely deformed, and that sets up her involvement in the next movie.
Yeah, she's getting interviewed on this like TV show. Yeah. And it definitely has that. I don't know if you remember when that woman got her face like eaten off by a chimp and was getting interviewed.
Yeah.
It's definitely like that. I think they probably pulled from that because it's very similar.
What's interesting is, so that interview, she does the interview after, the end of the movie, she gets her face mauled. She does the interview with the newscaster. That scene is actually first in the movie. Mm-hmm. And it kind of confused me. I didn't understand what was happening and where that fit in, because after that interview, what happens is the interviewer goes backstage to her dressing room, gets on the phone to her boyfriend, and is talking shit about how awful this woman looked.
You won't believe how fucked up her face is.
Exactly. It was that. And she didn't know that woman is hiding in a clothes rack in the dressing room. So she hangs up with the boyfriend, and the woman, Victoria, as we now know it was Victoria, comes rushing out and attacks the newscaster and kills her. And then they cut to a year previous, but there's no super title that says we're going back.
We're going back. Yeah,
right.
It's just
So I was kind of confused, and then you get to the end of the movie where you see Victoria coming out of her hospital room being released to go home, and she's got that face. You're like, oh my God, that's her from the very beginning.
Yep,
so they jumped around is what we did.
Yeah, we saw what happened that night.
Right.
Yeah. That's Terrifier.
That's Terrifier 1. Terrifier 2 was put together a little bit bigger budget, not much, $250,000 that was raised through an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign.
Which is, I think it's pretty cool.
I think that's very cool that you got that much money. And everybody who contributed got their name in the credits at the end. There are hundreds of names, which is fun to see that. And immediately, and I didn't know that it was a crowdfunding deal until I saw those names at the end. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I know where this came from. And if I'd read it above, it says Indiegogo, it's like, oh, but I didn't see that. I just saw the names coming through. But that was a giveaway that they did some private fundraising. And they did have some private investors, but the bulk of it came from this crowdfunding
from the fans
thing. And this thing on a $250,000 budget made almost $16 million. And pretty amazing.
That's officially the start of the franchise, I feel. Like when you see those kind of numbers, you're like, okay, we're really onto something here.
Yes. Yeah.
And this was the first one that actually had a theatrical run.
Yep.
So and this one actually takes place immediately at the takes place as soon as the last one ends. We're in the coroner's office. We actually see what Art does to him, and he goes to town. I think he ends up bursting open his head and ripping his brains out. Just classic Art stuff. And this is where we then Art leaves, and he's going to this laundromat where we meet a character that is very important. This little girl dressed as kind of like Art, same makeup and everything. And we do learn a little bit more about her as the movie goes on. But like at the beginning, you're just like, what is going on here? Because no one else can see her besides Art and a few other people later on in the movie. And then we meet our final girl, Sienna, who is making her own costume. This thing is badass. It's armor. It's got like angel wings, some sort of like medieval warrior that she's making herself. And we also meet her brother, who is obsessed with art. He's just a true crime aficionado, specifically with art. And we meet Barbara, who is their mother. And you can tell, I really like her performance.
Yeah.
It's just a really, like, she's struggling. She's at the end of her rope with these kids. Husband is no longer in the picture. And it's just, I think, a really good, accurate depiction of a struggling single mom.
Yeah. Lauren Lavera plays Sienna Shaw.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
And just an amazing actress.
Yeah.
And I was glad to see her back in the third one, which we'll touch on here in a bit.
So when we meet Sienna, it's exactly a year after the events of the first one. So it starts at the end of the first one, and now we have a little bit of a time jump.
Yep.
And that's where we meet the final girl and her family, and they're gathered around in the kitchen, and they see a TV interview where we learn the interviewee from the first one actually survives. So kind of surprising there. We have this really weird scene with Sienna where she's goes to sleep and she finds herself on this like commercial set for Art Crispy Crunchy cereal or something like that. And Art shows up on set and he's giving everybody high fives. It seems like a great time. And then he just pulls out a machine gun and just mows everybody down and lights people on fire. It's a whole thing.
The Clown Cafe.
The Clown Cafe. Meet me at the Clown Cafe. And then a fire starts, which is that. And this movie is a little bit trippy.
Yeah.
There's definitely some fantastical elements at play here because with her dream being on fire, her real life room catches on fire,
right,
taking out her angel wings. And her mom has to come in. She's pissed. She's like, God, you're burning my house down now too? I have no husband. My kids are lunatics and they're trying to burn my house down. And so you're left after that scene wondering like, what's real here? What's not? What are the rules in this movie?
Right.
And it definitely takes a step away from the gritty realism of the first one, which I really enjoyed. And then we kind of have a scene with Jonathan at his school, and we get a little bit of more of an introduction to him where he's walking down the hall and he sees Art and the little pale clown girl playing with a dead possum and just like ripping it to pieces.
Right.
And this freaks him out. So he takes off, and in principal comes in after he leaves and sees the possum and they blame him.
They blame him. Yeah.
And so then the mom now has to deal with a son who she thinks is ripping up possums at school, and he was already troubled.
The mom's just having a really bad week.
It's not a fun time for her.
No, it's really not.
Her kids are like, she's just trying her best. So now obviously Sienna needs new angel wings for her costume because her, burnt. And that's when she goes to a Halloween store, and we get a great scene with Art where he shows up and he's got to know something about her because he zeroes in on her. He's like, I'm messing with her. You get a really good scenes of suspense where he's just like staring at her. She just tries to creep away from him. He keeps showing up, and eventually she gets out of there. Art kills the costume store owner. And that's another really good scene with a practical effect where you see his eyes moving with a machete in his head. Just really good, good effects. I don't know. Sienna finally gets home after the whole costume store, and that's where she learns about Jonathan's problems at school. And she's like, I don't know, Mom. I know he's kind of weird, but I don't think he's ripping up possums at school. Right. She's like, I really don't think you have to worry about that. But this is where we learn it's a weird history with the dad in this movie, because we kind of get this scene where we learn that he was drawing pictures of Art in his sketchbook way before Art came to town. So we're like, you don't really get answers onto what the dad knew, what the dad didn't know, why he's drawing pictures of Art, and even scenes from the first movie. Yeah. So it's almost like, I don't know, maybe he's psychic. Who's to say? Anything can happen in this movie. Then Sienna's getting ready for the costume party.
Right.
She's going to go have some fun. She's been very uptight. Her friends are worried about her. They want her to let loose, so they end up giving her some drugs in her drink. She's just partying, trying to have a good time, forget about her home life, and now she is tripping on acid.
Molly.
Yeah, Molly. Then we get the scene in this one where Sienna's friend is handing out candy for trick-or-treaters. Art shows up, wants some candy, and she eventually is just like, fine, if it gets this creep off my porch, I'll give him some candy. She gives him candy in his giant trash bag full of weapons, and then he breaks into the house. Yeah, he doesn't leave, actually.
Right.
And then we get what is called the bedroom scene, which involves him skinning her, cutting off her arm, rubbing bleach and salt into it.
This is one of the worst kills in the film.
This is one of the worst kills I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's just so mean-spirited.
It is, and cruel and just nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This one I did look away on this one. This one was pretty intense.
That's fair. Because then you get even the worst part of it when the mom comes home, sees the house trash, and like, what the hell's going on here?
Right.
Goes look for her daughter and finds her daughter with Art still there, and somehow she's still alive.
Yeah.
She's just like moaning, like, help me. And you're like, oh, God. Then we don't exactly know what happens to the mom until it cuts to Art now handing out trick-or-treating candy at their house in a hollowed out head
that they think is a prop. They didn't know the kids they don't think it's
Grab
real.
the candy out of this head, kids.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple of them are like, ew, it's slimy. And the mom's just like, it's fine.
Just take it.
Just take it. Let's get out of here. This guy's creepy. Okay. And then it cuts back to Sienna in the club, and we get a moment where she sees the little girl there, freaks out. Her friend gets her out of there, and they're now just going to take her home. They're like, okay, you've had a rough night. Let's just get you home. While they're on the drive home, we cut to what's going on at their home with Jonathan and the mom. Jonathan just gets fed up of being accused of bringing the possum. He's over it. He's like, I didn't do the damn possum. Yep. He leaves. The mom then finds their family car completely trashed with shaving cream, smashed pumpkins, eggs. She assumes Jonathan did it. Mm-hmm. And as she's cleaning it up, it's revealed that Art is inside the car, and he then shoots her with a shotgun, blowing her head off.
Not just blowing it off, just disintegrating her head with this thing. This was,
She at least got a quick death.
She did.
As far as like deaths in these movies.
Which no one else did.
No,
in
like that's
movie.
the one you would pick.
Yes.
Jonathan then decides, I guess he's done throwing his little hissy fit party. He goes home to find Art there serving his mom mashed potatoes. He's just shoving the mashed potatoes in the smushed head.
Yeah.
It's a disgusting scene. And then Art kidnaps Jonathan. Yeah. And we're like, okay, what are they going to do with him? As Sienna is now still getting driven home, she gets a call from what she thinks is Jonathan. Turns out it's the little ghost girl who now can do
voices.
Yeah.
She's
so add
a new
that
act
to her resume.
In Vegas. I mean, she could go out and do this ventriloquism
She's really
thing.
good.
Yeah.
So then that leads them to a carnival, which is, you do learn that the little girl was Art's first victim, and that's where he killed her, is at this carnival. Yeah. So she gets dropped off there. Her friends are just kind of like talking about how her dad was a drunk and really became abusive towards the end of his life.
Right.
And so you get a little bit of a backstory there, but not much. And then Jonathan, and then the boyfriend gets a horrific death. He gets stabbed multiple times in the genitals, and then Art just rips his penis straight off.
Yeah.
And holds it up. The girlfriend just looks at it like, oh, lovely. Yeah. Thank you for that. And then, of course, the girlfriend freaks out. She's running. Art's just following her. And then you just get this crazy finale in this funhouse ride that has really cool animatronics.
Sure.
I want to ride this thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's well done. Way too well done for a small town amusement park.
Right.
But this is where you get the most fantastical elements of the movie. Because while Art is fighting Sienna and her brother, Sienna ends up getting stabbed with a sword that was part of her costume, and falls into a tank of water or something. Yeah. It's like a magician escape pod thing.
Right, exactly.
And heals up magically.
Yes.
So now she is invincible, I guess.
She's ready to go.
She pops out of the prestige tank and cuts off Art's head.
Yeah.
And now Art's dead. The little pale girl comes into the room. They're kind of freaked out, thinking like, shit, now we're going to have to fight her too. No, she just picks his head up and walks off.
Yeah, and that's that.
And then the credits roll, but we're not quite done yet.
Right.
Because Chris Jericho's got to make an appearance.
This is great that he makes an appearance in this film and in the third one, too.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they brought him back. Just randomly, let's throw Chris Jericho into this film.
You know what this movie needs? Y2K.
That's right.
Chris Jericho.
That's right.
And so we get this disgusting scene where Vicky is in the insane hospital. And Chris Jericho is one of the nurses. He walks in to Vicky giving birth to Art's head. And now the movie's over.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
And it wasn't a clean birth.
No. It was pretty messy. Even that was like, oh, my God, we're not done yet.
No.
Jeez.
It had to have one more scene to just cause you grief and disgust.
That leads us to Terrifier 3, which actually was released on September 19th at the Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas, and then it got its theatrical release October the 11th. Now, they actually got a budget for this movie.
Yeah, you can tell.
$2 million, which compared to $250,000 and then, $35,000 for the first one, $2 million, which is still very, very low for a Hollywood movie. This was like a gold mine for these guys. And it went on to make, so far it's over $51 million at the time we're doing this.
That's incredible.
$51 million. I mean, each movie gets bigger and bigger. And now they're talking about bloodier and bloodier. Now, 3 is the first one that I actually saw on the big screen.
Same.
So I streamed the other 2 on my TV and then went to the theater to see 3. And seeing all of this gore blown up to that size, it was like, oh man, this is intense.
It takes it to a new level.
It really does.
I do think the coolest thing about this one is because after the success of Terrifier 2, Damien was approached with major studios being like, we'll work with you.
Yeah.
And they wanted him to tone it down though. And he was just like, no, we're doing it ourselves.
And he's just proven that he can do that and do it his way.
Which is, I think, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to support this was and go to the theater to see it. I was just like, that is so cool.
So let's move on to Terrifier 3. So this one equally as gory as the other ones. And actually, France's classification committee banned viewers under the age of 18 from seeing this film. And that's actually the first time that ban had been issued since Saw 3 in 2006.
Okay, so it's been a minute.
And they did that. But this thing is getting incredible reviews.
Yeah, it's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
It is. 76% of 103 critics' reviews positive on this.
Yeah.
And it's
Which
amazing.
Is so weird.
To me. It is so weird.
This would not have happened 10 years ago.
No.
Like none of the Saw movies, even the first one, I feel like none of them got good reviews.
Not really.
Yeah.
So we have Lauren Levera coming back. And we have her brother also in this, and David Howard Thornton, of course. Yeah. And it was really cool to see them continue on this storyline with Sienna.
Yeah, we just kind of... They didn't give us all the answers I wanted because the second one left me with a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And you get a little bit of a nugget here, a little something here, but overall, you really don't get a ton of answers. The one answer that you really did get was what the little pale girl in the second one was.
Right.
Turns out she was a demon who really appreciated Art's work and therefore brought him back to life. And she isn't in the third, but she transfers. She isn't in the third as that little girl, but she is in the third as Vicky.
Right.
So that's what we learned. Little girl is a demon. Art is now making friends with demons. And that's really the only answers you get from that second movie.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite scenes in the third movie is the bar scene.
Oh, it's great.
When
Art is so happy.
He sees a Santa Claus, a guy playing Santa Claus who's in the bar after his shift. And what's great about this scene is Clint Howard, Ron Howard's brother, who has appeared in so many things over the years. He plays Smokey. He's Santa's friend. They're sitting at the bar in this one. And he dies. Yeah, everybody in the bar pretty much, there's only 3 of them, the bartender, Santa, and then Clint Howard's character, and they all die. So the Santa in this dies a horrible death. death because now Art is playing around with liquid nitrogen. He's actually built this weapon that shoots out.
He's very mechanical.
Very mechanical.
Yeah.
Very mechanical. So he basically ties the Santa to a chair after he has disposed of the bartender and Clint Howard's character and he sprays his hands.
Yep.
And then he takes a hammer thing and smashes his hands to, and then he just takes care of the rest of him with it. And
he also uses it to rip off the dude's beard.
Yes.
And that's the beard he wears for the rest of the movie.
There was another disturbing scene in this one too, and it's the mall scene. And
kids aren't safe in this one.
They're not. But I did see an article that Damien Leone said the one thing he would never show is the killing of a kid. Maybe off screen, but you're never going to see that. He said that's a boundary, the only boundary apparently.
I know. I'm like, that's the one?
Yeah, that's the one. We won't show a kid dying. But the mall scene where, Art is now taking the place of the mall Santa who was on break. Here comes Art with blood all over him. So happy, bloody gloves, blood spattered all over him, and the beard ripped off of the real Santa on his face, and he's passing out presents. Well, there's a bomb in one of them.
At first, I expected him to be maybe body parts or something, but no, they're toys. They're actual toys.
They're actual toys.
I was just like, okay, something's amiss here.
And these kids are like, oh my God, Santa. And they rush him and he's having a good time. Yeah. And then all of a sudden plants the bomb and then he leaves and all these kids are killed in this explosion. It's like, oh my God.
Art is now officially a domestic terrorist.
Then there's a shower scene that is just, I know there's a shower scene in Psycho. This is not your grandmother's Psycho. No. It's terrible. I think as I'm watching this movie in the theater, I think I actually sent you a text saying, oh my God, the shower scene.
Yeah, that's all you said. And I was like, yep.
But then right after that, well, not right after that, but soon after that, there's another scene, where
do you want to tell him what happens in the shower scene?
I'm going to tell him. The shower scene, go ahead. You tell him.
I'll do it.
Do it.
So there's a couple getting it on. Art breaks through the shower and just starts slicing and dicing. He kind of just the girl kind of gets it. Gets it easy is not the right way to say it, but compared to what her poor boyfriend gets, I think she gets off pretty easy. So yeah, we'll just skip to what happens to him. Yep. He's laying on the ground on his stomach. Art shoves the chainsaw
up his butt.
In his butt.
Yeah, at the butt crack.
Yeah. And then flips him over and does it right in the balls and penis and just takes it all out.
And the camera's not shy about showing you
see it.
Of this. You see all of this stuff.
You see two testicles just getting torn apart.
It was nasty. Okay, so that's what happens there. And then we're going to move
That's the shower scene.
But then you responded, when I sent you that text, you responded and he goes, oh no, for me, the rat scene was the worst.
Yeah.
So we'll tell you about the rat scene. This is when Art goes back. This is the end of the film, and Art goes back to
Sienna's house.
Sienna's aunt and uncle's house.
That's right.
And the aunt and uncle and her cousin, their daughter, and none of them make it out alive here, really. No. Well, actually, I think no, she does. The little girl does.
Remember, she falls to hell.
Oh, she falls to hell. That's right, Gabby. And I think this is where 4 might pick up because
4, I think, is going to be taking us literally to hell, which I'm kind of excited for.
But when, so Art and the ghost girl who is now Victoria, she's taking over Victoria's body.
Whole different monster. Victoria's way more scary than this ghost girl.
Absolutely. So they're torturing these poor people. And so Aunt Jess is tied to this chair, and they take this big glass tube and they basically hammer it down her throat.
Yeah.
And they take these rats and they dump these rats into the tube, and it's going down into her esophagus and down. It's just,
that's not it. They're just no, they can't be happy with that. They decide to then slit her throat.
Yeah.
And the rats just tumble out.
And here's the funny thing, and there's nothing funny about it, but this kind of made me laugh a little bit. The rat gets out and then shakes itself off to get all the blood off of it.
Well, that was unpleasant.
Like a dog does when you give it a bath and it just shakes off the water. That's what the rat did with the blood.
Yeah.
So that was
covered
just
in
nasty.
Human juices.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
So you're right. So at the very end of this, we lose Gabby, who's
in hell, I guess.
In hell or wherever she has gone. That's Sienna's cousin, who is only like 12 years old, 13 years old, whatever she is.
Too young to go through what she did.
Absolutely. And to see her parents just completely torn apart and everything else. Oh, and Aunt Jess does not survive, in case you're wondering. Nobody in that house really survived.
Spoiler alert, she managed to not pull through.
Right, exactly.
The thing is crazy, though. Like, there's some... I don't know if you heard about some of the controversy with this scene. A lot of like the religious people are pretty upset because Sienna wears a crown of thorns.
Oh, she does. Yes.
Yeah.
Like Jesus
not
did.
like willingly though.
No, it wasn't her idea.
No.
That was Ghost Girl.
Yeah.
And that was kind of painful to watch.
Yeah, that was honestly rough.
They just didn't. They were
digging
it in. They weren't gentle with that. Like wear that.
This is one of the funniest moments, though, is the scene where she's tied up because Art, every time he walks by her, he just fucking slaps her on the back of the head.
Yep.
Because he's still mad about what she did to him in the first, in the second one.
Right.
So like every chance he gets, he just takes a little shot here and there, just pa.
I know. It's like, what the hell? Let's insult to injury here, So anyway, this film has done huge business at the box office. And he confirmed, Damien Leone confirmed that 4 is in the works.
Yeah.
No real details on it. But the way this one ended, I'm sure that this is where it's going to pick up.
And you get even more of like the mystical stuff with Sienna because she's in a bad place and she does all her stuff heals.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. So I think we're going to see these same, Sienna will be back. We know that.
Yeah, for sure.
The brother did not survive either. Her little brother. Or did
it's
he?
Off screen, though.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think
see.
He's gone. I mean, they reveal. So when she's at, Aunt Jess's house and they reveal in a birdcage this skull. Well, it's not even the skull. There's still some meat on it, but the skin's been. And at first, we all think that it's Gabby because that's what they say.
They say, it's like this because they're trying to break the mom down.
Right. Well, it turns out it wasn't Gabby. It's supposedly her brother instead. So,
but like, I feel like I don't know what, but I know the demon that was in Vicky really wants to inhabit Sienna.
Yeah.
So I don't know if necessarily he's actually dead or if they were just using that to try to get her down to her lowest so she could be taken over. I don't know.
Who else would it have been? I mean, we don't see the head of the father, the uncle.
Right. He's headless. So it could be him or it could be any of the number of people Art killed that night.
It could be, but I still think it really was the brother.
Okay.
I think it's the brother, but I mean that we'll find out.
Yeah, as a rule of thumb for me in horror, if it's not shown, you can't count him as dead officially.
Right, exactly. And they really haven't said, there are no word on really whose head that was in there, but I just think it was the brother. But again, I could be wrong. I've been wrong about many things, and these movies are kind of hard to predict what's going to happen next. So, yeah.
So that's the Terrifier franchise as of right now. It's going to be growing. Overall thoughts, we're both on Letterboxd. What did you give these movies on Letterboxd?
So I gave them pretty good numbers. I can't remember exactly what I did. Look, like I said, I'm not a huge gore, fan, and this definitely pushes every envelope in horror films.
Right.
Probably some of the most gory things and disgusting deaths that I've ever seen. And I've seen, thousands of horror films over the years. I think the Saw movies are pretty graphic, but I don't think they're
very tame compared to this, honestly.
Most of the slasher films that I've watched, the deaths are quick. That's the thing that we talked about earlier. That sets these films apart. These deaths are not quick. These are just drawn out, and
they're mean spirited. It's a very mean spirited franchise, which is so weird because there is a lot of humor sprinkled in them as well.
There is. Well, Art the Clown. The way he reacts to everything, all of the horrible things he does. It's like the more horrible they are, the bigger he celebrates and dances around, and you watch his facial expressions and you're like, oh my God, this psychopath.
Like if he's having fun, I guess I am too.
I guess you want to enjoy it, but it's
I kind of want to dance too.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
Personally, I'm kind of with you where I'm like, I'm not a big gore hound.
Right.
And I knew that the first time I saw the first two, I definitely gave them lower ratings than I did this time around.
Sure.
I gave the first one 3 stars.
Right.
Second one was a little bit of a step up, 3.5, and then Terrifier 3 was 4.
Yeah.
So they kind of, for me, got better.
They did. I think that I'm with you. I think I gave 4 stars to the third one.
Yeah.
I might have given 4 stars to the first one, and then the second one was not my favorite out of the 3.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe 3 stars. But no, I thought, I mean, you look at what they did with these films, and especially the early ones that had literally no budget, and they were able to do what they did with it. I'm sure that, the actors and crew were working for free food and drinks and everything else, because that's probably what they were getting paid, or minimum wage or something. But with this last one, with a $2 million budget, they were able to do a little bit more. But again, the practical effects were just as good, I think, in the early films as they were in this third one.
I think so as well. And that's just a testament to the director, Damien Leone. His background was in special effects and makeup. So he is the reason why these films look so good in that department, which is kind of crazy. He wore all the hats in this franchise.
Yeah.
He would edit, he would direct, he wrote. So this really is his love child. Like, this is his baby.
It is. It definitely is.
Really a messed up baby to have.
But you
he's
gotta
a proud
love
parent.
It. He's a proud parent. We got to get him on the podcast.
I would love to talk to Damien Leone. Just pick his brain.
To see
where do you come up with this stuff?
I mean, where do you come up with the ideas for these kills?
Yeah.
These are they're very creative. I mean, I wouldn't think to be able to do this kind of, or come up with this kind of stuff. I mean, I've come up with some crazy ideas for some of the stuff that I've written, but nothing that's like this. I mean,
no, this is pretty crazy. Next level.
Oh my God. Yeah. So that's it for the Terrifier franchise. In 2 weeks, we'll go with something a little more mainstream.
A little bit of a palate cleanser.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to go back to a movie that I think it still is one of my favorite horror films. I love vampire films. We're going to go back to the original 1985 Fright Night with William Ragsdale, Roddy McDowall, and Chris Sarandon.
This is one I have not seen, so I'm excited to kind of dive in and experience it.
It is nothing like what we just experienced. I watched all 3 of these Terrifier movies in a week. All right.
That's a lot.
I'm going to need counseling,
I
think, for this. But Fright Night, much more tame. And I'm excited for you to see that one.
Yeah,
there was a remake in 2011. We might talk about that one. It was good, but it was different. There was also a sequel to the 1985 film that I think it was a straight-to-video release.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, because it was what it was. But we will definitely focus on that first one from 1985, Fright Night. And that is it, the Opening Kill podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. I'm Brian O'Connor.
I'm Michael Duran. Thanks for listening.
Enjoy your Halloween. Ooh.
The Opening Kill podcast with Michael Duran and Brian O'Connor. Produced by Mystic Cloud Productions. Music by Tomas Herodek. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you in 2 weeks.